Hello and welcome. I'm Udai Pratap Singh. Thanks for joining us on NewsX today. You're watching a brand new episode of the NewsX Business World panels on the Indian economy. Yes, we are going to be decoding the Indian economy and also talking about how to build an AATMANIRBHAR Bharat. How do we get India back on the path to fast track growth and development? How much has the package by the government actually managed to infuse corporate India with positivity and liquidity and demand? And what else still needs to be done by the government and the RBI? We're going to look at all of that over the course of the next 1 hour. We have a power-packed panel joining us. Let me begin by introducing them. Snehadeep Agarwal, Chairman of Bhartiya, is live with us. Mohit Singhal, founder of the Legal Line Mindsweep Ideas Private Limited, also joins us live. We also have Sameer Makhani, Managing Director of Makhani Creatives Private Limited, with us. Dr. Binti Singh, urban sociologist and Associate Editor of Oxford Urbanist Faculty, KRBIA, is also with us live. We have Gaurav Thukral, Dr. Gaurav Thukral, COO and EVP Healthcare for Home India Private Limited, who's also with us. Co-founder and CEO of Zostel, Dharamveer Singh Chauhan, joins the panel as well, as does Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Businessworld and Exchange for Media Group. Welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Mr. Agarwal, let me begin with you first. Snehadeep ji, your reading of the current state of the Indian economy, what are the opportunities even in times of adversity like we are of course seeing right now, and how much really has the government's financial stimulus package helped corporate India?
Now on the financial stimulus, we are still trying to figure out how it is going to help different sectors of the economy.
If you could just speak a bit louder, sir. Yes.
We are still trying to figure out how the stimulus is going to help. So first we have to decode the stimulus. That's my first thing. Sure, we have to all look at, we are agreeable that the vulnerable sections of the society must be helped first. But my view is, if every sector of the economy has been hit, whether it is real estate, hospitality, retail, manufacturing, export-led industries, and all of them need support, including aviation, right? So one has to figure out, I will just share a couple of examples of how clearly economic stimuluses have helped other nations. So we have a company in Switzerland, very clear that jobs will be protected through the businesses, right? So every company's last year's revenue, banks are advised that 10% of their revenue, they can be given long-term 5-year loans at interest rates of 0 to 1%. And they're all government-backed. Within the announcement, in 24 hours, they dispersed $500,000 or Swiss francs to every company. So there's clarity. Then I was talking to our friend Peter Wood. He's the CEO of a very large retailer in UK called All Saints. When I talked to him, he said, Snehadeep, all my employees have been furloughed, but they will be paid 85% of their last drawn salaries, right? And I don't know what else to ask for the government. I mean, the government's support is so good, I don't even know what else to ask. So I think a little bit more clarity on the stimulus, right? While I'm sure vulnerable sections of society have to be helped, the RBI liquidity norms, they were very welcome. And I thought it was very, very good, at good timing. But now they have to percolate down through the banks and financial institutions to the businesses. So that's where the main crux, how do we handle those? So economic stimulus is important, and these are extraordinary times. So without the support of the government, because these kind of incidents, without the support of the governments for long-term capital to sustain businesses, my point of view is all sections, jobs can be saved by stimulus through the businesses. So business survive and jobs survive. So these are some of the things we need to look at.
Dr. Batra?
I want to, at this point itself, I want to ask you, you were in the garments sector, you have a large listed company, then you started a real estate company and made it a success. So you reinvented yourself. What is your advice to entrepreneurs in these COVID times to reinvent themselves with whatever limitations they have?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of our learnings from our own businesses. You see, over the last 25 years, we are the manufacturing and exports. Every year there is a narrative that we have to tighten our belts, right? We have to be more efficient. How manufacturing companies in Vietnam and China are more efficient. But Anurag, I must tell you that our teams have got together, and in the last 3 months, they have achieved what we did not achieve in the last 10 years. Right? So this is the good side of when you have to survive, right? You find ways to survive and you find ways to go. So we have actually kept our targets of profits the same, even when our turnovers are going down by 35% estimated. So reinventing businesses in time of distress or opportunity, this is the constant thing that every business should look at. Right?
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Let's take it forward. Let's also bring in Mr. Singhal at this point. Mr. Singhal, come in here on how much your sector has of course been hit as a result of COVID, and your views on the stimulus. On the pros of it, the cons, what you still expect from government.
So I think looking at the economy, it is a long-driven process to get it back on track. 40 million laborers are almost migrated from their working space. So it is very important to get them on the work. So our sector, steel and iron ore, which is directly related with infra and real estate. Government has to pump, not only pump the money in the news or the paper, but they have to come with the practical pumping of the finance in the sector of infra and real estate, which can only drive the economy back to the boost, and which I think is the fastest sector that can get back to the economy. There are certain, currently the main issues for us is labor. Laborers are not there, and I don't think it will be next decade, next 2 or next quarter, the labor will be back to work. And unless the labor, India is not that equipped well also. So the laborers have to come back to the work. The economy has to start, the rotation has to start, the cash flow of the every business has to start immediately to revive this economy back to the track.
Thank you, Mohit. We'll come back to you. At this point, let me bring in Dr. Binti Singh. Dr. Binti Singh, you heard Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal, you heard Mr. Mohit Singhal. Now, the urban density was supposed to be the big positive that we had, both in terms of, people living near to their working space. That urban density in COVID times has actually become a negative. It has led to a spread. So tell us, first, what is your response to the economic stimulus? Second, how do we plan our urban cities or semi-urban cities or new centers of economic activity, keeping what has happened in mind?
Okay. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this esteemed panel. And my take would be a little philosophical. My take would be a little academic. I'll take a step back to reflect our trajectories, the way we have been building our cities so far. So we have this concept of hard cities and smart and soft cities. So hard cities is all about smart technologies, infrastructure, and heavy aspects of the city building. I think in our trajectory, in our growth of this zeal of building smart cities, heavy infrastructure dependent cities, somewhere down the line, we have forgotten about the softer aspects of our cities. Though cities have been historically very rich, culturally very rich, and they have been thriving on strong community ties. Somewhere, the cities of the developed north have now, because of this pandemic, have come to realize that collective spirit, or when the survival of the ecosystem is very important, the sense of community has suddenly come to the fore because the individual pursuit is not going to pay. So there is this rethinking. So I think we need to a more philosophical stand, and density per se is not the problem. Because there have been reports which say that density is not the problem. It is more of how you tackle density, the awareness. Again, it is a thing of collective wisdom. If we have that kind of a awareness that if the wider ecosystem survives, then we survive. And contract theory really brought to test the testing times. And government has to really gear up its welfare functions to help the bottom of the pyramid citizens. That is the need of the hour, I feel. We have to rethink our trajectories, and we have to take a more long-term and a philosophical view on this entire episode to come out of it.
We'll come back to you on how the newer centers can be built where labor is. Mohit talked about how 40 million labor is gone back. And my personal view, Mohit, is that labor will come back because they need means of livelihood. I'm even making a prediction they will come back at lower rates. But it's when the fear factor goes away, maybe in 2 months from now. At this point, Sameer, everybody Uday have talked to on the show talk about demand being tepid. Malls opened, and for the first 1 week, there were hardly any visitors. Now, you work on the advertising side, you work with brands. How do we get the demand back?
See, there's a lot of issue with demand. The demand has gone on for two reasons. One is huge unemployment. And the salary cuts. If you see, even if 30-40% unemployment has happened to corporate companies who have furloughed people, and there's again a 50% cut in salaries of people who are already there. So definitely the consumption to go down by 50% is legit. Right now, I work with almost every retailer and every sector in the country today. And like right from home to food to shoes and every clothing, everything, they are all running around at 15 to 20% right now, which probably will grow up when the curve is flattened. Even right now, if you see the news, every time you see there is a peak is announced, which is the highest number of COVID cases, highest number. Once that goes down, people will be more confident of stepping out and the consumption will go up. Secondly, I also feel I have a very different take because I'm a creative person. I would not go into the academics and the numbers and the government as well. But I do feel there's a huge opportunity in consumption over a long-term period where all the people are getting laid off. Or they are really good people. It's not that they lack talent. If the government creates a stimulus, or we as a community, I feel that India survives on the business community more than the government. And if we as a community come up with ways to get them self-employed, a lot of people who have gone back to their villages and all, I'm sure they want to start their small setups, small stitching units, small construction staff. Even like, for example, there's a guy, according to me, one of the best shoe designers in the country. He was part of an apparel group because the apparel got this. I think he lost, they furloughed him. So I sat down with him and we brainstormed, and then I made him start a consulting company, which is launching next week. So, if we can push people around and figure a way out to get people money, because it's until the consumption will not come with the distribution of money.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg story.
The chicken and egg story. So I generally feel that a lot of people forget the power of entrepreneurship that runs in Indian blood. And if we can push that as a community, see, the government is not going to come and help us. Let's accept the fact. We can wait all our life. Forget stimulus. I don't even get my TDS refund so I can pay my salary. Forget everything.
No,
don't give us.
I want to say to you, Sameer, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, the TDS refunds have come back, income tax refunds have come back.
But those are below 5 lakhs.
And I'm talking of, I know of entrepreneurs. So I think that has started to happen. Dr. Kral, how do you see the investments in healthcare going up and this debate on lives and livelihood? Tell us, what is your response to the economic stimulus?
So, Anurag, I think the way health and safety has been seen in COVID times, I have in my 20 years of careers never seen that before. Overnight, I think the demons have become superheroes, where people have realized that the healthcare workers are the corona warriors. And at the same time, I think this new normal has made a definitive place for out-of-hospital care. Till now, the investments were always for chain of hospitals, big buildings, all those plush marbles and big machines. But when now people are constrained for beds, they don't want to go into the hospital. I think the out-of-hospital care has become the new normal, and that's which is going to grow, which is going to boom, bring access and affordability, because that can scale across to beyond tier 1 cities also. So just to give you an idea, OPDs have gone online on teleconsultation, labs have gone into home sample collection, all OPD procedures or daycares like chemos and dialysis are being done at home. There was a time when people didn't want to come out of the hospital. Now they are so eager to come out of the hospital that ICUs at home are booming because people want to get it treated. And if I have to speak only of COVID treatments, getting a testing done, which is like now a 3 days or a 4 days, or today's newspaper says 10 days thing, in the confines of your own home, and then on to be a home isolation program. I think this all has evolved over the last 2-3 months. What I feel is that at this time, this whole package of stimulus, first we have to feel safe because we have to live with Corona. We'll feel safe only when we are aware and there is a behavioral change which we are going to bring, because this is not going away. Like HIV did not go away in the last 15 years, Corona is not going away anywhere.
But what about the healthcare sector then, Dr. Tukral? Is the spending on public health and healthcare currently by the government adequate? Does it need to be scaled up? Do private operators also now need to respond to the occasion while also being responsible and not fleecing people? So what about your thoughts on that aspect?
I feel, Uday, there is a lot of more which needs to happen in healthcare, primarily COVID times. I think testing needs to be ramped up. Any government which is trying to cull down the numbers by doing whatever tactics is wrong. Testing should be the norm. Mildly symptomatic people should be at home. Moderate should be either at home or in oxygen facilities. And if hospitals are treating only severely ill patients, I don't see that we have a cracking system. The problem today is there is no triaging, and hence the expenditure is increasing even for a mildly symptomatic patient. If this triaging is done in a proper manner, and yes, definitely more emphasis is brought to spending, I feel that you don't need these 5-star hospitals to manage every COVID patient, and even the small nursing homes, tier 2 cities with telemedicine, with EICUs can contribute in a very affordable manner.
Okay, Mr. Chauhan, you are a sector that the government has not done anything. Your sector has been the most impacted and possibly hasn't got anything from the government. What is your response to the stimulus?
Right. So, as Snedeep also mentioned, so there is nothing directly, that is flowing through us. So we operate backpackers hostels across India, and we provide affordable, travel options to young travelers who are coming outside from India who really want to explore this incredible India. And these are all outside the tier 1 cities. These are all in, destinations that are now coming to the map of India, because now the Indian infrastructure is also coming up. So now is the time period. Then there are destinations like Mukteshwar, Bir, which weren't really on the travelers map earlier. And, now coming to your, direct question that, what are you looking at directly from the stimulus? So, I'll be, honest over there, there isn't much direct relief. And I would have loved, as Snedeep mentioned, if we could just, the salaries of these are all, staff if you look at the last level of the staff that operates in the hotels, they are all, they cannot work from home. These are people who really are the ones who, if government could support, would be very essential and helpful. But what I really expect, keep the stimulus aside, if we could have, a bit more clarity of, when, as we are, opening up, about the reforms that are possible in the travel industry per se, maybe, as Samir also mentioned, AATMANIRBHAR. So, there's this whole angle that, when we come up, we believe that, every destination is a worthwhile place to travel in India. You travel 20 kilometers, there's a different dialect, there's a different cuisine, there's a different culture that comes into the place. And we need somebody local. We need somebody local who acts as a friend for the travelers who are coming up and who are staying over there.
But are you relooking at your model, Mr. Chauhan? Are you relooking at your model, given the fact that international travel may take a hit for now? No international flights, of course, allowed as of now. We don't know when that will happen. Will it be in Unlock 2.0 or in Unlock 3.0? Also, because backpacking hostels, of course, cater to foreigners mostly for now. Will you be gearing up now to welcome domestic tourists now? Will you be changing your model, changing your target audience?
So we already have, so the way it happens usually is that when you cater to the international quality, the cream of the Indian millennium, the SECE, the ones who are working the best jobs in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. So these are really the millennials and Gen Z who really travel with us already in very high numbers. So, we expect even the domestic demand to really directly cater to the business possibility. But right now, we are not safe. Right now, we are not even safe to step 1 foot outside our house. And when you talk about traveling, it comes as a, it comes as an outcome when it is safe to travel in a car, when it's safe to go outside my district. But yet, I'll tell you a couple of interesting aspects that are going on. Yet with the work from home, we are seeing a decent demand from people who are willing to relocate for a couple of months. Right now, they are anyways not in their home place. They are anyways in Delhi, Bangalore, so where the risks are probably higher. So they would probably like to move for a month itself in a place where they have decent internet connection and rivers flowing and mountains in the view. So as people have been locked down, so there's also a desire for exploration that's been coming up. But I'll just probably crib a bit towards the end, is that as we on the national level we decide that we have opened up, then there's this whole state level that each and every different state is coming up with their own policies, how they want to open up about each and every industry. And even if they usually say that they've opened up, when you go to the district level and you start trying to open an hospitality segment right now, you want to talk with the police, get an NOC, be comfortable. So I think and there's a lack of clarity I think in the overall segments. And I'm very hopeful that it's mostly for the week or 2 weeks. The entrepreneurs are all stepping up. We have 45 different entrepreneurs across the country who have our franchisees and who work with the hostels. So they have all been supporting their own stuff. And I think it's the entrepreneurial spirit of the local, local businesses and entrepreneurs, which will really pull us through.
Okay.
Mr. Agarwal, just before we take a break, I would like to ask you, when do you see the Indian economy coming back? 90 days, 120 days, 240 days, or beyond that?
Rag, I think first, now we have to all realize that, as some of my co-panelists said, that we have to live with this virus. First of all, we have to take out this fear from our narrative. Right? There is too much fear mongering. And if you don't take out fear, right, we are going to suffer for the next 100 years. So fear has to come out. And like you see, Nassim Taleb, I was reading in the morning an article from him. So he says, the bureaucrats around the world don't like simple solutions. Just by wearing a mask, we could lessen the influence of the virus by 95%. The chances of virus getting you is 95% less. So that means, you see, 2 people in my office got it, but they did not, in fact, they brought it to the office, but they did not infect 1 person because everybody in the office had to compulsorily wear the mask. Poland. So, I mean, you don't need governments to give people masks. So if we could take this fear out, and as Dr. Gaurav said, I mean, you look at Italy, by the time they realized that they can have hydroxychloroquine and an antibiotic and a blood thinner. So they are saying 99% of people are being treated at home. It's just that the governments didn't know how to deal with it.
Okay.
And then we started with the fear. So if we take out fear, we'll get back there very, very fast. Yeah.
Okay.
Demand will pick up also very fast, right? Because this is pent-up demand. So there is a short term and there is a long term. So in the short term, what we have to do, take fear out. People have to be encouraged to go and shop. And so in the long term, yes, the economy is affected, and then we can bring in economic views and everything.
Dr. Thukral, I want to actually go to you at this point. Interestingly, Mr. Agarwal made a point before we took that break of now getting people to venture out, encouraging people to venture out. This unlocking needs to happen now at a faster pace is what he said. Although by urging people to take adequate precautions like wearing the mask. Are you in concurrence with that argument, Dr. Thukral, or would you be more cautious as a health professional? Do you believe we are unlocking too soon?
Well, I tend to agree with Mr. Agarwal. See, there are only 3 things which we simply need to follow. He's put it very rightly: masking, social distancing, and hand hygiene. If we are doing this to the toe and we teach everyone to inculcate a behavior of these 3 simple things, I think we don't need to fear anything. I think the second confidence with people is that the biggest fear today is what will happen to me, right? Even when the government and everybody is saying that 85% of the people are asymptomatic, it's only 3 to 4% who get severe and get into ventilators, and then only 1% dying. Everybody thinks that I am that 1%. So more awareness, more testing, as I said previously also. All these things are going to empower people. If I know I can get tested and I know where I am, I don't need to fear about it. So simple things in your behavior and testing, I think these are the things which will help people unlock and venture out.
Mohit, we've been talking to people on the panel, and all entrepreneurs view about only two things: demand and liquidity. It boils down to these two. When do you see the liquidity coming back? Do you see banks lending soon and the execution of the government package happening?
So at the current level, I think the liquidity is completely dried up with any industry house, any business house. The working capital is completely exhausted and additional liability has been created in last 3 months for the salaries, rent, all the fixed expenditure. I don't expect any big liquidity from the bank thing, because bank has now to come up and open lending. It is a very fearful factor in India. As Mr. Agarwal said, the Swiss banks and the banks in Singapore and banks in US and other countries are so lenient to entrepreneurs and they trust business. Here in India, I don't see any trust between a banker and entrepreneurship anymore left. But what I understand is it is an equal responsibility for an entrepreneur, like the government, to come out, believe in their business, focus in their business, create their job, so that the liquidity starts rolling, the business starts rotation and the demands pick up. So let us not put all the blame on the government. As an entrepreneur, we must also take a responsibility to restart the thing, accept the COVID, as Dr. Gaurav has been saying, and restart the entire cash flow with that. So it is just about we stepping down and start the things, and money will be there in the market very soon.
Dr. Singh, you talked about the aspect of rethinking cities, how we design cities, how we think cities, and how do we think of economic interactions in those cities. Tell us, what will be the city of future if it was to be built today? What can the policymakers do to build cities when they build new cities?
We just have 20 years to get it all right. So the pandemic has thrown open new questions, but this is also an opportunity for us to really rethink our trajectories. The path that we have taken, this carbon rich and resource rich kind of trajectory is going to lead us towards disaster. So we have to really reprioritize everything and focus more on the softer aspects of it. So as everybody said, the density is not the problem. It's the little things, the little strategies. So while we need a long-term vision, nobody is denying that, which includes all of the climate risk and, lowering the carbon footprints and also taking care of mobility and growth and inclusive growth. And technology is a good equalizer in this respect. Technology which is good for all of us. So new ways of thinking, new ways of working, new ways of schooling, leisure, etc. All that is fine. But those little strategies, little awareness, wearing a mask, designing of a mask, and the various sections of society are also sort of thinking in different ways. For example, while we are thinking of decongesting the cities and moving towards the hinterland, there are sections who want to come back to the city again for the opportunities. So there's going to be this movement back and forth. So we have to think of the cities of tomorrow are going to be cities not standing alone, but in a continuum. They have to be integrated with the region. So we have to strike a balance between the sprawl versus compact cities. We have to strike a balance, and then we have to come back to that magic figure, whatever we want that, the density to be of our cities. So we have to strike that. We have to take a middle path. That is what we have to do. The cities.
When you talk to clients and brands, advertising spends have come down on an average to 30%. A lot of sectors, brands are on pause mode because there is no demand in their sector.
It's almost zero, almost zero.
No, average is 20%.
In
some sectors, zero. So when do you see Diwali is on 14th November, which is almost 5 months away from now. When do you see the demand coming back, and what can the brands and businesses do to bring demand back?
See, basically, if you understand, marketing is suffering from two ends. COVID was just one of the reasons, but because of the digital world, everything has gone for a toss. Now, whether you want sales or you want to build a brand, there are two question marks. I'll give you a very classic example. A brand of mine 2 years back called me for the 20 crore media plan. I sat down, made the plan, everything. The son comes in, goes to Amazon, commits 20 crores to the AMS, and boom, he's done a 600 crore business. And there's no requirement of creative. And I asked him, you're such a powerful brand. Why will you kill a brand like this? He said, if I have money, I'll build many brands later on. Right now, let me make money. So
performance marketing. You're
performance
saying
marketing.
To marketing which directly produces results
Yes.
in the short term and not necessarily brand building.
Yes. A lot of brands should start doing direct to consumer product line, which is missing in India. But if you see US and Europe, they've gone way ahead. And this is where all the old brands in America and London are dying because they just don't want to move. I just want to add something on liquidity. There's still liquidity with entrepreneurs, but bad debts. Now, a lot of our 80% of our turnover is stuck with people who are not ready to pay. And if you paid GST on it, if government can somehow secure or ensure that whatever money you pay GST is paid, and if they can just ensure that money that you get it, I think the liquidity and the boom can come really faster. But as far as walk-ins and retail is concerned, I am worried that it will take next Diwali to be back to the last year levels. And right now only...
Coming Diwali, you mean, not the next Diwali?
I'm talking 2021 Diwali.
Oh,
I don't think that this Diwali...
You're making a mistake. But you really mean it will take another...
I know, because I know the numbers. I know how when lockdown opened, the numbers jumped on Sundays. Then how it dropped. So I've been actually monitoring numbers of almost 12 to 15 top retailers of the country, and it's not amazing. If it's 15% right now, in peak Diwali, it will touch 40 to 45%. And that's nothing to recover any of the costs.
Which one, if you were at hostels booking were at 100, where are they today? And where do you see them in 6 months from now?
So they were fairly, because we had to shut down the operation. So obviously, for the last 3 months, they were zero. Last week is the time that, Karnataka, we have opened up Coorg. So there are 5 properties that we have now opened up in the next 2 weeks. So we have already reached, there's nothing, well, 5, we are doing 5% of, bookings per se that were earlier, on a daily basis reached. But what really was, very fortunate was for us was that, to cater to the liquidity crisis, etc. What we really launched was, because we have a lot of our, customers who love us, we really were very open up that, we are willing to sell, advanced room nights that are in the packages of 10 room nights to 20 room nights. And if you purchase them right now, they're at a discount of, anywhere between 10 to 20%. And, just doing that, we actually generated equivalent cash flow. We today have more cash flow than we had in March. Although, on the revenue basis, we have, not been able to do it. But, with the furloughed salaries, and we have been able to manage the liquidity crisis. But the business is yet to, come up.
Is this year gone for tourism sector? Do you believe this year is a write-off, or is there still hope that it will?
See, I think the domestic travel is going to be there at least in our best quarter is, still the third quarter that is to come. So I'm very hopeful that it's just about as we get more comfortable, going on a family trip within our car to a safe premises. That is also, not a very crowded place. That's a secluded, it gives me a different experience. I still believe, millennials are, and the young families in the millennials, they love to travel, and, they will come back to, the domestic travel should be coming up. I'm very hopeful in that sense.
You should open them up for shoots. I think that will really work for you.
Open up for?
Shooting.
Shooting.
It can really work.
Yeah. We on the group level, exactly. Let's connect later on. You send me the shooting.
All the panelists on this show are entrepreneurs. So as entrepreneurs, I'll start with Mr. Agarwal. Mr. Agarwal, of course, everyone has to pare down costs, bring down costs. But what do you do on the revenue side? How do you think of new business models? What is your advice to other entrepreneurs?
My advice is simple, and my view is let's talk again in September. Right? I think there will be enough demand, pent-up demand will come. All that we have lost in 3 months, will come back strongly. Just take fear out of people's minds. Just let them see that this virus is going to stay and people will find ways. Yeah. So I think come September, we would have, and come March next year, we would say, oh, a pandemic hua tha, right? So September onwards will be the upswing. I am a very strong believer in this V-shaped recovery, right? So that is what is my view on this.
Mr. Agarwal, while I like your optimism and I believe October onwards we will pick up, but I'm not a big believer in V-shape currently. What do you think could go wrong and that V-shape won't happen? Or what are the things we should protect against going wrong?
So as I keep saying again and again, we should have clear narrative. The central government, the state government, the bureaucrats, one narrative as one nation. Germany had one narrative, right? It went down well. Sweden, right or wrong, had one narrative. South Korea had one narrative, right? And they are all, in China,
by the way, Sweden opened up its public spaces much before everybody.
Yeah. So even China, I mean, I have a company in China for 20 years. So even China, there was one narrative, right? We can discuss many other things, but there was one narrative. And in May, they were promoting people to go and shop. So they were giving extra holidays. So if there is one narrative and we all understand that we are over that initial uncertainty about the virus, right? Markets are strong, companies are strong, people are strong, right? And of course, we have other underlying issues of the economy. Indian economy was anyway not growing to the levels we had predicted. We were down to 4%, right? So that is the other main issue, but these are long term. So if I compare on the short term, Raj, so I want to talk to you in September and you said October, so we'll meet somewhere, right? So, yeah. So
I want to ask, because you're truly global, you're a listed entity, very large business, exposure to many countries. Do credit rating matter? Does credit rating matter? Should we be worried? Should the government print more money? What do you have to say to that?
No, credit ratings do matter, but not in this time. At this time, the governments have to get over the fear of the credit rating agencies, right? The same credit rating agencies behave differently with different countries. It's all negotiation with the credit rating agencies. So those are separate issues to resolve, and we've, as a country, been wanting to resolve them for many, many years, right? So I think in the short term, like every economist, every ex-governor of Reserve Bank of India has said, at this time, it's all about your immediate economy. It's all about getting capital into the economy, get more finance, more capital into the economy.
It's probably, the stock markets that react most to credit ratings these days. But Dr. Batra, why don't you give your view on, there are some now who are coming out and saying that, look, many European governments actually did not spend in bailing out their Indian economy. Often this example is cited of the US and the UK, but there are other, big economies and big governments which did not bail out companies and corporate India. Rather, they chose to lift up those most vulnerable, and that's what obviously our government also has attempted to do. So, how do you strike the balancing act? You were talking about the balancing act between lives and livelihood. What about this balancing act?
My view is, first of all, comparisons individually or with countries are never good, because it's like saying, what if I was born in Mr. Ambani's family? I mean, what if I was related to Jeff Bezos? If buts don't work. The fact is, here in India, we can look at best practices, but our government has very little leeway. The only thing I'd say to everyone who compares is, yes, it's good to compare. We have to expect from the government in terms of healthcare infrastructure, in terms of uniformity in testing. I think those are the right expectations. If we get the uniformity in testing,
rapid testing is the biggest fear.
It shouldn't be a patchwork pandemic. If there's patchwork across, so if we get that policy right, we get the government to spend, and I promise you that the government will spend. The government understands what to do. It will just wait till the government doesn't want all the demand to come back right now, because the next 30 to 60 days may not be the right time to get all the demand back because it could be the spike. So we have to respect the government. I think the government has done reasonably well. I don't, and also dare I say that in UK, they did a great job of giving 80% plus directly to the employers. But UK is a very rich country. We cannot compare ourselves with UK. So I think comparisons are unhealthy. The government has done a very good job, in my view. And I think going forward, the government will spend on infrastructure, and that will mean that every sector of the economy will benefit. I don't think the government wants the demand to come back in the next 30 to 60 days.
Okay, fair point. Dr. Thukral, do you want to react to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
From a health perspective?
Absolutely. I feel that health and testing has to be the priority at this time. And as Mr. Agarwal said, the narrative has to be very clear. When confusing narratives come out, it confuses the last person who's already going through unprecedented times. Nobody knows how to treat this virus. Nobody knows how to deal with this virus. So whatever narrative is happening has to be crystal clear to be percolated to the last. And coming to what Mr. Chauhan said, I think today our problem is that we fear what will happen. If I have a kit where I can test myself, if I have a kit where I can use oxygen when I'm moderately sick, if I have a kit where I can talk to my doctor, and I'm confident that the government will evacuate me if I have a problem, I would love to go and stay in a homestay where Dharamveer Chauhan will get me. So I think those are very simple things, if enabled with technology, can get the fear psychosis out. And coming to opportunities, I think we are into healthcare space, and we had an opportunity of resuming businesses again. People have this fear psychosis. If I go to the business, I'll get sick. I'll bring back the virus to my family. So training people, making people aware, implementing simple guidelines, SOPs with a stress on what happens if somebody is detected symptomatic or somebody has to be evacuated. It is as simple as that. I think if the narrative and the policies are clear, we will not be in that bad a shape.
Okay. I want to go to all the panelists and ask them what are the sectors they see coming up. Some are obvious. Healthcare is great. Technologies, assimilation in every sector is growing. Content businesses are great. But some other gems that are hidden. We can start with Samir. You talked about D2C brands, direct to consumer. So more and more brands becoming D2C, surpassing the omni-channel experience. That
I think it's going to be the best thing because it can make an entrepreneur of anyone else. But today, if you have an idea, it's very easy to become an entrepreneur because there's services like delivery. You just sign up, you go to Shopify, you have site up in 2 hours, and you just do performance and you start. So I think there's a great opportunity here for a lot of people. And I really think that there's going to be a lot of new entrepreneurs that are going to come out in this COVID.
And what are the sectors? What are the sectors that are hidden? Give our viewers on NewsX some of the sectors that have not been yet kind of brought out in the open.
I can't place one right now. Sorry.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next. Mohit Singhal wants to come.
See, this pandemic, we realized one of the sector which we had explored is the Legal Lion, which is a new brand for us. So it is a sector which is a bridge between the courts of India. So this app, what we have developed is, we think now it is not possible for the people to attend the legal cases going physically to the court. So this bridge we have gapped to connect the advocates and the client and the court, where you can synchronize and come on an app to discuss all your cases, and you can connect with the court. So that is one business we have been exploring.
What you are looking at with disputes between various parties involved going up, you're looking at a roaring business, because one thing pandemic will do is to create more disputes between tenants, and retailers, between various parties. Dharamveer, what are the sectors beyond your own sector which you think will blossom?
So as we discussed about my sector, that it might take some time to blossom, but extending on the backpacker hostel feel is it's really the real reason why we backpack is not because it's affordable or it's cheap. It's because you meet new people. It's because you are in an environment that you feel safe about, and you meet different cultures. Especially you go there, you meet somebody from Northeast India, you meet somebody from South India, or somebody from outside India, and then you start to understand your own biases through just conversations, and understand the common factor of humanity that really exists at an empathy level. So during this pandemic, while we were locked up, we really felt that our community wasn't really able to come together and connect. And as it's pretty evident that internet and being online is something that we might be even more prevalent, doing all of this on this video, rather than going to the studio, coming on this Zoom and just having a good conversation. It might even turn out to be more convenient in the future. So with these expansions, we have personally also launched a digital world called as Zo World. It's at zo.xyz. And what really happens over there is you go out there and there's a music playing, and there are different rooms. So there is a room where just people come and then they go out and play mafia games or some Ludo games. And there are people who are just chatting around. So there's no video, there's just an audio connection. And it's pretty intimate, in that level. So, hopefully, these are the different these are not existent industries, I would say. As the pandemic it is, and as the internet penetration is fairly increasing, we are now going into the second layer of, when the video is connected, when the audios are connected. Now, what are the psychological and the consumer behaviors of, being connected on the audio? So maybe we are hanging out, with there's nobody else to hang out. So, there's this digital space when I go and really hang out and, meet new people, make new friends, and hopefully in a safe space. So I think it's a good time to be creative and, really think about if you have nothing else to do, then how you can possibly leverage the internet and the distribution of internet to possibly build interesting and new
India gaming business is really on a boom suddenly.
It's
after 10 years back it went into a slumber. Now it's really picked up, especially Ludo. I think it's really and many of the games, the online games, is really picking up.
Right.
So fantastic. We want to close this panel discussion by asking all of you one question. If you had to make one prediction for the future, and I define future as 6 months right now, and not more than that. That may not have sounded future, but these days we live for each day as it comes, each week as it comes.
Yeah.
So what would be your one prediction for the future? We'll start with you, Dr. Gaurav Tukral, and go around the house.
So my prediction would be that we'll have a vaccine against COVID, which will be administered home to home, so that we don't have any other fear of COVID. That would be my prediction.
And when will that vaccine be available?
I hope it is there in the next 6 months.
Next 6 months.
Yeah.
That's December. So you're saying before December.
January times.
Yeah. My prediction is we will have a vaccine available commercially in October, and hopefully October, November in India.
Sure, sir. Hopefully.
Samir, your prediction?
My prediction is that I really feel the consumption will try and jump around Diwali. I just really hope it does that. Otherwise, I just hope that second wave doesn't come. And that will really be a tsunami that we can't stand for. But because I've been stepping out to retail store for my own survey, and I've really seen the pickup happening. I do see, though the consumption, like I said, Diwali won't be as last Diwali, but I feel that there will be quite a retail boom in October.
Dr. Binti Singh?
Yeah, for me also, I think I'll go with Dr. Tukral and an affordable vaccine for all of us.
That's more wishful thinking. I'm looking for a prediction. That's what all we want.
Prediction. I can't the future much, but I think it's a good opportunity for creative people like us, for authors, for artists, for entrepreneurs like Dharamveer and Samir, and
okay. Point taken. Let's take that to Dharamveer then. Yeah.
So I think it's difficult to say on the vaccine aspect. I think we would all learn to live with corona. I think that fear that really exists, that we'll probably go 6 months back when things were normal. We'll probably wear the mask as required and wash our hands as required. But I do think that, even when we have learned to live with corona, there are still, structural challenges in the Indian economy, and especially rather than the stimulus on the reform side, if things could be accelerated, it's very easy, when the economy is going down, you can blame the virus, or you can, really look forward to, doing something innovative and move forward. So I think we'll learn to live with corona. It's hard to say how the economy will be completely level. I do feel that, there will be a deficit because of the lost jobs, and, learning to manage with new rentals, lower salaries. That's the new normal.
Mohit Singhal, your prediction for the future?
Prediction is like on this auspicious day of Rath Yatra, I leave everything on Lord Jagannath. And I think with the Juggernaut force, the economy, the health and wealth, everything will rebound back very soon. Maybe a quarter more. Let us live on Lord Jagannath everything.
Okay, last but not the least, Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal, we started with you, we end with you. Give us one prediction for the economy. You already said post-October, we'll see the demand coming back, and by March next year, we should be doing similar business as we were doing in March this year. But beyond that, one more prediction.
Yeah, Anurag, predictions, right? Not easy, I can say. But I agree with a lot of panelists that there will be a vaccine and there will be so many drugs which will help people to get over this faster, right? And they're already here, they're being made in the country. So that will take out, let people rest, let governments rest. I think that is one thing that will make it all simpler and we'll go back to our lives.
Okay. I want to ask you a follow-up question. We have some time.
Right.
Indo-China debate. Do you think India will really see large companies relocate out of China in the short term? Or is it just, wishful thinking?
Anurag, they will not relocate from China in the short term, right? We have to all think in the long term. And we've been discussing China and India. I went first time to China in 1993, right? And I went to see a factory and it looked like I had come to somewhere in Siberia. And if you go in the last 6 months, I went again, first week of December. So we can't do this wishful thinking that all that large manufacturing and supply chain that they've set up and the efficiencies of the manufacturing sector, right, their progress, this is not going to happen. But we do need to prepare ourselves. And this is a discussion we've been going on forever and ever. But I think this is a wake-up call, right? Of course, nations have to collaborate, not fight. I'm not talking political, but nations all over the world need to collaborate and we need to see the strengths of each nation. It cannot be just, so AATMANIRBHAR doesn't mean that I have to look inward and do what I need to do, right? There's a history of the last 100 years of how we evolved, how the different economies evolved. So I think we need to look internally. We have to see where our strengths are and we have to focus on that. Manufacturing has always been a great opportunity for India, right? Now, Rajiv Bajaj says that, we've beaten the Chinese at the motorcycle industry around the world, right? So they've done it right. They've designed products and they've done it right, right? But he says also that why don't we import? There is no restriction on importing parts for his motorcycles and he's dependent on them. And as an industry, why would he go somewhere else to source those parts?
Okay. Okay, let that be the last word. We'll leave it at that. My thanks to all of you for joining us today. Stay safe, take care, and thanks to our viewers for watching as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.